Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Happy Tuesday. Today's October 4th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, Democrats are calling on Black women to have a stronger stance on topics like voting rights and abortions, as experts feel Black women might be focused on other important issues, what the result of a new report concluded. Meanwhile, the battle of the Senate heats up, and who wins is in the hands of 4 key states. Those 4 states are where we are expected to see the biggest shift in power. And soulmates, you better believe we have that story. Then, a California football team was forced to forfeit their season after a viral video shows members of the team reenact a slave auction. A moment the school board is calling a teachable moment.
Plus, the FBI tracked information on the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, for years, what they're looking for, and what was her connection to Dr. King. We've got those details. And Kanye West is responding to backlash over wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. We'll tell you what he said and why many are calling this latest stunt very dangerous. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We start today with news on the campaign trail. Democrats are now facing a big test with Black women in 2022. Advocates are calling on them to step up their messaging on voting rights and abortion. A 2019 report found that Black women are drawn to policies on job security, racial justice, and health care. 2/3 of Black women voters believe abortion should be legal in or in most states. While abortion rights have become a major issue on the campaign trail, on this cycle, experts say Black women are particularly invested in reproductive justice, which combines racial justice and abortion rights. This study to me is very, very interesting because we know that Black women consistently step up. Black women single-handedly handed the presidency to Joe Biden. I mean, they came out in numbers, right? And so we see Black women always showing up for the Democratic Party. So it's very interesting to see some of the issues that Black people or Black women are hyper-focused on. I think what needs to happen is the Democratic Party should stop taking Black women for granted and therefore campaign to get our vote, right? I think they take it for granted. I think their target vote is the suburban white woman. They want to go after that swing voter, that woman that they think that they need to sway, and they kind of just put us in their back pocket and think we're always going to be there. But I think while that won't always keep us from voting, I do think sometimes it keeps people from getting to the polls as they should, just because they don't feel like they're being spoken to. Mm-hmm. So I think going forward into the midterm elections, I think instead of Black women having to do the work, I think the people running need to do the work to get our vote and to engage us and get us to the polls.
Absolutely. The suburban white vote is, like you said, Mimi, that is considered the vote that we care about, when in all actuality, our vote is the one that you should definitely be focusing on, which is why it was very important to have someone like VP Soror, Kamala Harris, in office, because a couple of reasons. One, you have that Divine Nine connection there that is all Black sororities and fraternities. Then you have the fact that single-handedly alone, she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I know as sorors, we were like, it doesn't even matter what she is fighting for almost. We're going to vote for our soror to be in office. And so, that was great to have that. But also, too, you look at all of these other states that just did not focus on the Black voter. So hopefully we see for Joe Biden, happy that the study came out so that he can know maybe I need to focus a little bit more on those rural areas, those urban areas, that have those Black female voters, because I need to put more into them because they put a lot into me for the last election.
Absolutely. Yeah, this goes back to slavery. Let's just be honest. Black women have to pretty much help build this country on their back. Let's go to civil rights, where Black women were the last one to get the right to vote, right? So now we think women have that power. Like you said, we saw what happened in the 2020 election. But yes, you definitely need to go ahead and make sure you show Black women some love and appreciate them, and things that they want on that list should be checked off, way before the next 2024 election comes. So at the end of the day, when we think about this, yes, Black women are taken for granted. And Some may stay home if they're not happy. They may not go and vote the other route, but they may be tempted to stay home. And that's what the Republican Party really, really wants. They want the fact that they just get tired of what's going on, saying, look, there's too much. I don't know who to vote for. I'm just not going to vote, which sometimes means a winning vote for the Republican Party.
Very true. But I will say with this particular study, it does say, because I was worried about that too, Romeo, that, okay, well, are we going to leave the party? Are we going to not vote? But the study does say that they don't believe that black women will leave the party. They're not expecting for us to not go vote, but there is a slight chance that we could. So that focus could make sure that we are at the polls and voting for who is for us.
Absolutely. I think the message here is stop taking black women for granted. And we always show up for you, so make sure that you show up for us.
The more that you find out, you will, the more that you put into us, you will find out. I'll say that. As the new term begins, the Supreme Court is due to hear cases concerning voting rights on today. Now, one in particular concerns gerrymandered maps in Alabama. Experts say that it could further dilute the protections of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, depending on how the conservative weighted court votes. Now, while Alabama's current black population is 27%, Alabama proposed voting maps would give only one of the 7 states' congressional districts a chance to elect a black representative. In January, a 3-panel judge ruled the maps violated the Voting Rights Act, to create a second district where black voters either made up a majority or near majority of the population. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court then sided with Alabama in a 5-4 vote, stating that such maps should be way too close to spring primaries to make this change.
And Latino voters are split on whether they approve of the job President Biden is doing. That's according to an NBC Telemundo poll released over the weekend. Biden only has the lead approval rating on foreign policy, with 49% of Latinos approving of how he handles those issues and 44% disapproving. Latino voters generally disapprove of Biden's handling of other issues, including border security, the economy, and the cost of living. Still, about 51% of Latinos approve of how Biden is handling his job. That's compared to 30% who hold a favorable view of Trump, who continues to tease a potential 2024 run.
And former President Donald Trump is suing CNN for defamation. In a lawsuit filed yesterday, Trump's attorneys claim the news agency ran a smear campaign and looked to use, quote, massive influence to defame Trump for the purpose of defeating him politically. Now, Trump is reportedly seeking $475 million in damages. The former president announced his intent to sue the network earlier this summer, adding he would announce similar lawsuits against other media outlets.
And the battle for control of the Senate may come down to final 4 key states: Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, Nevada and Georgia, where 2 Democrats are trying to hold on, and that's in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, where those Republicans are trying to keep one open seat and save a vulnerable incumbent. The 4 states are not the only competitive contest, but they are seen as the 4 focal points of both parties. Now, those races mostly are likely to see a very big shift in power. Republicans think that they can have a decent chance of winning the Senate majority despite the difficult map in which they are defending more seats.
In the first and only debate in the race for Texas governor, dozens of family members of Uvalde shooting victims show support for Democratic candidate Beto O'Rourke. 35 family members of those affected by the Mace shooting that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead, traveled 5 hours by bus to show their support for O'Rourke, now who debated Republican Governor Greg Abbott. Abbott has been routinely criticized for his response to the deadly mass shooting and unwillingness to support gun control measures. O'Rourke has been outspoken about the need for more robust gun control and the response from officials after the mass shooting. When officials held a press conference a day after the shooting, O'Rourke interrupted it to remind them of their inaction.
And Governor Gavin Newsom is vetoing a bill that would have extended the deadline for reparations committee here in California. The bill would have granted more time for a first-in-the-nation African-American task force to complete its work. The legislation would have extended what was originally a 2-year committee to 3. The mission of the committee is to document California's role in perpetuating discrimination against African-Americans, craft an official government apology, and draft a comprehensive reparations plan.
starting in January, will no longer be cited in most cases for jaywalking in California. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill that decriminalizes jaywalking. The new law says that you can cross the street anywhere outside of an intersection, but only if it's safe to do so. Police will still be able to stop or ticket you if crossing the street puts you in danger of being hit.
A high school football team in California is forfeiting the remainder of the season after some of the team members acted out a slave auction. The superintendent of the district says he received a video showing team members at River Valley High School pretending to auction 3 of their black teammates in the locker room. The district says the players involved in the incident would not be allowed to play for the rest of the season. The video was first shared in a group chat between students, although one student claims the clip made its way to social media. The school board says they're making plans to turn the incident into a teachable moment for students who may not realize how deeply offensive their actions were. I have a few things on this. We've been hearing about HBCUs getting threatened. We've been hearing about teachers bringing cotton to the classrooms. Now we're seeing this happen. I have a problem on both sides. One, that it even happened, that you have the students that would agree to do this. But as a parent, right, if I'm teaching my son well and he goes to school and he even wants to involve himself in it, as a black parent, I'm going to have a problem with my child as well. Like, how would you stand there and even think this is something worthy of making a joke out of? So there's several issues that we have here, and I don't want it to get to the point where people try to say this is why we shouldn't teach about these things in school, because people will mock our history. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
You know, Romeo, when I first read this story, I thought the same thing. It was like, this for me is a teachable moment to make sure that Landon knows his worth, to make sure that he doesn't fall into any of this foolishness, right? To make sure that he's well equipped with the knowledge of what happened back in the day so that he doesn't think that this is a joke. I think that, so when you say it's a teachable moment on both sides, I don't know why you're right. On the other side, some kids would, one, think this is funny, but why they would participate in this. So I think parents on both sides have a lot to do when it comes to parenting. Also bringing this to school, I think the school, they are no longer allowing these kids to play on the team. I'm not really sure if that's sufficient or not. I don't know what that's think would be what would be sufficient. But you know, it's a very you know, this day and age that we live in. I feel like we're trying to take a lot of things out the school, so a lot of kids aren't learning the things that we used to learn. That's why they think cotton plants and all these sort of things that's happening these days are funny or it's a gimmick versus when we know that people died for it. So it's just a very different day and age right now.
You know, I don't want to rehash what you guys have both said, so I want to speak on a different part. You know, in high school, I don't believe that is an age where you are unaware of what's going on in the world. I tell you guys all the time, TikTok will let you know everything that you want to know. I go on TikTok to find out anything that I need to know, as well as Instagram, as well as Twitter, so YouTube as well. There are places to find out the answers to the questions that you have. So in high school, I don't believe that that's a place where you are unaware. Like grammar school, elementary school, maybe you could be unaware. High school, you are very much so aware what's going on in the world and what's around you. And so taking away from what you guys have said, because it's very important, but also imagine being in high school, thinking that you're going to get a college scholarship and wanting to be on a football team and things of that nature. One, this is always going to follow you that you did this. And two, you're taking away all of your opportunities for something silly, to disrespect a marginalized community just to be funny. Now you've possibly lost out on a college scholarship or playing at a college, and you've lost. Imagine what your family is thinking right now that's probably, hopefully not racist, and then you've ruined possibly everything for yourself just to get off a joke that wasn't even funny. So you guys' point is important.
You know, this is a very, you know, because these are sophomores and juniors. So
that's when you get scouted to go and imagine a scout coming to look at this and seeing that you were part of this.
It's happened in the past. Well, people got recruited, maybe got through college, got a chance to get drafted, and the night before draft day, something surfaced from 5 or 6 years ago that you did that makes a team say, I don't know if I want part of that.
You know how
then you played yourself. I mean, you hit it right on point with that for sure.
Might be missing out on a lot of opportunities for this as well.
Absolutely no, and this is about 38 miles from Sacramento. So Sacramento, I'm sure they have a larger black population there as well. So, you know, there are some great points and some things that, you know, I'm thinking this is up north, although Sacramento's up north, but it's still close enough to where you are mingling and mixing with enough black people to know this is
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so in Wisconsin, a former cop who was fired after shooting a black man to death is being charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors say Dante Salinas killed Marcellus Stinton and injured his girlfriend, Tafira Williams, in October of 2020. Salinas also faces involuntary manslaughter charges and several felony counts for aggravated battery. Prosecutors say Salinas became involved in a police chase after Williams drove off from another officer during a traffic stop. Investigators say Salinas fired several shots into the driver's side of the car as it tried to reverse past him. If Salinas is convicted of both charges, he could face up to 20 years in prison, and second-degree murder holds up to 5 years for that manslaughter charge.
And a man in North Carolina recently bought property. He found out that the graves were of enslaved people. Kenneth Spellin bought 2 acres of land in North Carolina. He planned to use the space as a place where his grandchildren could play. He says the previous owner mentioned a family cemetery on the land, but was very vague about it. Spellman, he says that he later found out that it was a slave graveyard. They found 40 to 50 gravestones, and the president of the local historical society says they used census and property records in order to determine that the property was owned by a Wortham family who were slave owners back in the 1800s. The family owned the property for over 100 years and grew tobacco on the land. An article from 1893 stated that investigators were working on a case after the owner at the time, George Wortham, he found a mulatto infant buried in a soapbox in the family cemetery. Spellman, the new owner, says that he now plans to preserve the legacy of the formerly enslaved people on his property and free the souls of all who were in bondage there. Not really sure how he's going to free those souls. However, this is what happens when you buy 40 acres, right? And then you find out, but then you have people, celebrities that come in and they have like their weddings on acres like this. And then you come back and found out like, wow, you were getting married on a slave plantation. I feel like if there are buried people that were there, it needs to remain a place for buried people. I understand that we all want to make money, and I'm sure they probably got a deal on it because the people who sold it knew that they were giving you a deal, because who wants to buy somewhere where there are 50 to 40 dead people that were there? But if it was somewhere where dead people were at, freeing the souls is leaving those people there and letting this be a place where more people can rest. I don't believe that you should build anything on top of it if it was once somewhere where slaves were at.
Yeah, I think the man bought it, of course, not knowing. Like he said that they told him there was a family cemetery. You're right. That's a little weird to want to buy something when you know there's already a family cemetery on the property. Yeah. But when he got and dug a little deeper, he realized that it was more to the story and that there was like 40 to 50 burial plots there. And then doing some research with local historians, he found that those were like actually people who were slaves who were buried on that property. And so kudos to this man, because what he's saying is, you know what, I want to honor these people. I want to find out who they are. I want to give them the proper burial, find out who they were, versus just, you know, having them in a shallow grave somewhere in my backyard. It's, you know, we're seeing this all over. Something like this happened in Florida. This is you know, the sign of our times, and you know, we know that black people were slaves. They were buried on plantations back in the day, and they never got their proper burials or their just due. And so, you know, I'm glad that he's bringing this to light and he's telling us, because this is a part of history. This was very interesting to me, just learning about this, because we don't, you know, necessarily hear a lot of stories like this.
Yeah, and it's just living proof that you cannot hide or bury history, because it will come to life in this particular situation. And there was one thing, one line that stood out in this paragraph. It said it will last another few generations, which simply means he's going to do what he can to preserve it. But who says what's going to happen 50 or 60 years down the line, maybe 100 years? But how can we avoid that? How can we make this a historical place where it can't be touched? That's something that I feel like we can free their souls, and we can do something of that nature.
Exactly, because Romeo, if they go on to make this something else that's not a burial site, then you have people, like I said, celebrities that say like, oh, there's this nice little beautiful ranch that's in wherever, and I want to get married there. Then you find out later like, oh my God, J-Lo got married on a slave plantation. Instead of keeping it what it is, which is people were buried there, make some, you know, make it a historical grounds, and maybe make money. I don't know, do something else, but keep it a burial ground. Don't make it anything else other than what it is.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.